We're going to go through a quick overview of Microsoft Teams today. I'm going to run through this and just point out some of the big features. At any point, if you feel like you need to stop and practice or look through something, don't hesitate to pause the video. Since this is on YouTube, you'll have the option to where you could change the speed. I know I tend to be a fast talker. Feel free to slow it down. Or if you're more comfortable with this, feel free to speed it up as you look through this. But just take this at your own pace. When you finish today, we're going to have you work in some small groups. We have some challenges for you. Or if you want to come to the library, we will have a focus group in the library. But we really want you to look through these things, get familiar, and practice as many of them as you can with a small group of people that you're comfortable social distancing with, so that you can see how to troubleshoot before you get into a situation where you're with students who are far away that you can't talk them through. We want you to see and troubleshoot and work through this today. So just take your time, go through this a little at a time at the speed for you, pause it whenever you need to, and then get ready to go into some groups after you finish that or come to the library. So I want to start out by talking about the philosophy and how you want to look at Microsoft Teams. A lot of people try to compare this to Zoom, and that's not really a fair or even comparison. Zoom is meant to do one thing really well, and Teams does a lot of things. So I showed this analogy. I want to consider this to be Zoom. It's a really high quality tool. It does one thing better than almost anything like it. Nothing can really compare. Teams, on the other hand, it can do a lot of things. It has something similar to that single tool, not as good, but it has lots of things that single tool can't do. So we're going to dive into this and see why you would want to use Teams in comparison to Zoom and what's the advantages of that. Now with Teams, you have three options here. You can use the website, which is teams.microsoft.com, and that's what students will be using on the Chromebook. You can use the phone or iPad app, or you can use an Android app, and that way you could maybe have notifications on, or if you want to listen in while you're going down the road. And then finally, you can download the actual Microsoft Teams computer app from self-service, or have one of the tech folks put it on your computer for you. Now as we look here inside Microsoft Teams, when I click on the Teams section, it shows me all of my groups. Kind of reminds me of the dashboard in Canvas where I have all of my classes. We're going to jump in and explore some of the major pieces. Everyone will have this particular team. You may not see all the options because I created this team, so I'll have a few more options than you. But today we're going to have you create some teams so that you'll be able to do the same things and practice with this. So I'm going to jump in here, and we're going to explore this interface to let you see what's available and think about why you would want to use this. Now the first thing I want to mention, Teams is not meant to just be a video chatting app. It has the option to do that, but it's really meant to kind of combine all of your conversations, all of your files, and your videos in one neat place. A lot of times when we work as a team or a group or a committee or a PLC, we may have Google Drive folders all over the place. We may have a string of emails spread out everywhere. Nothing's really organized. We got kind of close in Outlook when they started creating the little groups in there. But even still, it didn't have the component of the calls. So as we look in here, this is the South Dual High School 2020-2021 group team. Inside the team, any team that you make, you also have channels, and you always start out with a general channel. That's kind of the lobby. That's where everybody's at. Here in the middle, we have our posts. This is kind of our chat room. And with each channel, we can have this chat room. We can have a place for our files that relate to that channel. And we can have video meetings for that channel. The channels allow us to either have everybody all at once, or we can break it down into smaller groups. So for an example here, this is a faculty group, so I have different channels for committees. I have different channels for our training for today, and we could even have different channels for our PLCs. And it gives us one place so that admin can jump in and kind of jump in everywhere. But the important thing about channels is it lets us kind of avoid that frustration where email has the reply all and everybody sends a message to people that don't care and they just want to see what pertains to them. So channels let you put smaller groups of people together. Maybe it's a group of people working on a project. Maybe it's a PLC again. Maybe it's whatever. It's just so that you can focus on a group of people that need to know. It might be a unit in your class. It might be a project group. It might be a small group. However you want to break it down so that you can communicate with a group of people and not have to type in all their names for each little message like you would have to do in an email. So it lets you break that down. And the big point I want to hammer home is Teams pulls together your conversation, your files, and your video meetings. It's just a way to pull that together so you can have different teams as a big group and you can have different channels to break that big group down into something smaller so that you can really drill down to what you need. So let's look through these three parts. In our general channel, so everybody's seeing it, in our posts, this is our chat window, I can just type in messages. And so this is kind of a running conversation for everybody. Now you may think, well, I can do discussions in Canvas, but everybody has to reload the page to be able to see it. This is more of a real time, and we find that with teenage students, they're more into the text type thing, that instant communication, than they are emails. So this is a real-time conversation, and this will also be the conversation that you see going on beside a meeting. So you can see when we had the faculty meeting the other day, you might see where I say shared files or different things like that as an example. So this kind of keeps that one long string of information in one place so I don't have to go back and find it in different places. Now within the chat, I can just type a message, or I can even use an @ symbol, kind of like in Google Docs, and direct that message at a specific person so they get a notification and they're not having to look at everything. Down below, I can do some special things within my chat. So I could add some formatting, some bold, italic, underline if you want that. I can add a file right here. I can share a file with everybody even though we're not in a meeting. I can add my emojis, super important. Can't have a conversation without the emojis. Even more important, you got to have your GIFs or your GIFs or wherever you lean on how that's supposed to be pronounced. You also have your stickers. Absolutely important to have stickers. And then finally you have Stream. That's kind of the Microsoft wannabe YouTube. And it's also where your class recordings will end up being. So you could drop in a recording when you record some video direct instruction. You can put it right here into the chat. And various other things. Now, when you look through this window, as we have our conversation, we also have our files. So I can see I'm in the general channel and I see one file here. And that was a file that I posted in the conversation. However, if I go to another channel, you can see the conversation's clear and that file's not showing. So these channels help divide up your conversations and your files and your meetings. So that's the theme of the day. We've got conversations, files, and our meetings, our video meetings. So let's just break that down and keep it all separated. You'll see other options, but we're not going to dig into those on the beginner meeting. That can be a big rabbit hole for you. So we're going to kind of hold off on those for now. We want to keep you focused on the conversation, the files, and the meetings. Now, when you look in this area, I want to point out a lot of times you'll see 3 dots, 3 dots, 3 dots. All the way down here when I hover, sometimes there's a hidden 3 dots. Anytime you see 3 dots, there's something interesting under there. Also, if you see the little upside down caret symbol, there's going to be something interesting there. So if you can't find something, look around for those 3 dots. There's always a ton of neat little options there. So let's jump in on a few of those. I want to point some of those out. I'm here in my general channel, the everybody channel. I'm here in the conversation part. So I'm going to go up to these 3 dots up here. So this lets me affect how I get notifications of anything going on in my channel of my team. I can go down here and manage the channel and say who's allowed to post. Now I want to get back, kind of a weird place to have it up here, not lined up. So it lets me get back. As I move down, they've got get email address. And that makes you think, ooh, I could maybe email this group. No, it doesn't really work that way. It's kind of a silly feature. It gives you an email address, and it just puts that message into the chat. And kind of thought, if you got access to email, you probably have access to your team. So not real useful. You can get a link to the channel, so that'd be a way to invite people into your channel or your team without having to add them one at a time. But one of the neat things, since this is connected to your email, is that you can add groups. And when I created this team, I was able to just add the group like I was sending a mass email. So I only had to type one thing in. The connectors we're going to leave alone for now, and the SharePoint we'll leave alone for now as well. Let's go over here to the left and look at these 3 dots. So this gives me some more options with my team. So whereas these were kind of specific to the channel, these with the team name are specific to the team as a whole. So I could manage my team, and this lets me see all of the people on my team. So this is actually everybody in the staff. So as it scrolls down, you'll see I have some people listed as owner and some people listed as member. And you can change their status. An owner means that they can make channels and they can do just about anything, and the members are the people who participate in there. Now you can set up different permissions for who can make channels and who can do this and who can do that, but that's kind of the general thing. The county will set up class teams for you, and they'll put you in and they'll put your students in, and so you'll be an owner and they will just be a member. So you'll have that taken care of for you. You won't have to create that specifically. I'm going to go back here. So another option of these 3 dots, I could add members one at a time here. And one thing you're going to find when you do that is you can only add people in Knox County. So if I try to type in my wife's name, it's not going to happen. But if I type in somebody from South Doyle, I can see them. I can see anybody in the Knox County directory, people that aren't even in our building. So I can add anybody I want, but you can only add people to a team if they're part of Knox County. So that's kind of your only option there, at least in this part. You also have the option to leave the team. You can edit the team. So this lets me change that little graphic here. I can upload my own, and I can also control whether the team is private or public. So anyone can join, and that's where you can create a link or a code for other people to join your team. Now that may give you the ability to let people who are not necessarily Knox County people join the team. We'll experiment with that some today as well. You can leave the team. You can get a link to the team. So this just gives you a link that you could email out and someone could join that way. So that'll be something for you to experiment to see who all can get in. I do believe that if you give out this link, you might be able to get some non-Knox County people in there, but just depends on how they got the permission set. So that's something we'll experiment with today as well. But that's just a way you could email a bunch of people this link and let them take care of adding themselves to your team. Again, you won't really have to worry about that for classes because Knox County is going to set that up and nightly sync it for you. Finally, you can delete the team. We probably won't be doing much of that until the end of the school year. Okay, so let's move on. I want to look down here at channels, and I want you to notice that as I hover, you can do things to the channels. So this channel is always there. You can't do much with it. I can't delete that channel. It's always there. And you can do different things with your channels. You can control who's allowed to post, who can do what with it. You'll notice I also have some channels that are locked, so it hides them from the people who aren't in there so that it's not as cluttered for you like it is for me. So I can literally hide the channel. I could manage the channel, who's in there. I can change the settings. You can do just a little bit of everything with those individual channels. You can add members to that specific channel. You can edit the channel. So basically change the name of it. Real exciting there. And then we'll skip the connectors. You can delete it or you can leave the channel from yourself. If you're the owner, it's going to be kind of hard to leave the channel because it's your channel. Okay, so now we've looked at, if I jump back over here, we have looked at the ability to have chats. We know that we can add files here. or we can just go to files and we could add a new file here as well. We can download the files. Now it's time to look at the meetings. I want to do a meet. If I'm in the general channel, that's everybody. So if I just do an instant meet, a meet right now, that would send a notification to everybody. Now this is a real channel, so if I do that, it's going to annoy a lot of people, and it's kind of late. So don't want to do that. I could jump over to a different one and do that, which I'll do here in a moment. But let me go to a channel here that doesn't have hardly anybody in it. So if I go to the beautification committee, we haven't set up committees yet, I could click meet, and it would put a little meet button down in the link, and it's ready to go. I'm just ready to meet right now. I didn't have to do anything. Anybody in the channel can see that notification, and they're ready to jump in. If I'm in my general channel, I have that little drop down, and I could schedule a meeting. So that lets it look a little bit like Zoom. So you can put in a time, it'll give them an email notification, kind of like the one you saw from Mr. Berry, and it will also create a notification in the channel. And one thing that's neat here is I could add, randomparent@gmail.com, and it's okay with that. And it will let them come into this meeting if I schedule it. So that's the easy way to get a parent in. It also gives them ahead of time notice because they probably aren't going to be in your teams. It's best if you're going to meet with a parent, like for an IEP, to do it like this. Down here, it's already selected the channel that I started the meet from, so everybody that's in that channel would see the option there, and I can give more descriptions to it as I need. Okay, now let's look at the meeting options. So I'm going to go down here to beautification so I don't disturb everybody late at night. And let's jump into an actual meeting. So we're going to say meet now. Actually, before I do that, I want to point out how much I'm modeling the worst possible scenario for a meeting. I have a really busy background. I have this huge, massive light right behind me, which makes my face really dark, so I get to look like the Crypt Keeper. I just have all this busy stuff going on, so it's just not a great thing. You want to definitely get the light behind your computer so that you're well lit. You have a light background, or maybe even a sheet or a green screen behind you so that you can have a good, clean, empty background. This is the only quiet place in my house, so that's why I'm recording right here, right now. So if I go to Meet Now, look at some of these options here. On the side, I have a participants window. If you don't automatically see that, on the toolbar, you can click, you've got the hang up button, and then you've got participants. And let's turn this ugly guy off for a minute. So in participants, over here we have people, and there's my 3 dots again. So from there, I could change the permissions. So that gives me the option to set a few things like who can bypass the lobby, always let people bypass the lobby, announce when people join, who can present. So different options like that. The other option that I have is download attendance list. So instead of you taking roll on a virtual challenge or a virtual chat, you can just wait till nearly the end and download an Excel that has the times that everybody joined and left. If you leave the chat, you've lost the opportunity to do that. So make sure right before you hang up a call, you download your attendance. Or, maybe you get to the beginning of class and you download it at the beginning, and you can always catch it again later. But the best time, if you can remember, is to do it right before you hang up. Down here, I'll see my list of participants, and if these were live participants, I'd have the option to mute them or boot them from the conversation. Now, once they've got an invite, they can always get themselves back in. So that's one of the things where Zoom is a little stronger. One other thing that's neat is if you started a meeting and you think, I forgot to invite so-and-so, or they're not in the team, you can click this little chain link and it says copied to clipboard. So from here, what I could do is I could jump over to my email and I could send someone an email. I could start a new message and add whoever it is. If I can stay in the right box, I can add whoever it is that I want. And then I can go down here to the message part and I can paste. So that would either be a right click to paste or a Command V, and it gives them a link that they can click and get themselves straight in the meeting. And so they can use the web, they can use their phone, they can use the actual app. So that's a way that you can invite people that aren't necessarily in your team. Otherwise, if they are in your team, you could just start typing the name in, and there they are. It's whenever you have the chance, it's always best to schedule a team, because that way you've got all your participants added. It's got a time, they've got a link. It just makes it a lot easier. And even if you're scheduling the meet for 5 minutes from now, it makes it a lot cleaner and a lot easier. So jumping back to our toolbar, we've got our participants, so we can see who's in there. Our next one over is the conversation. And so this is our chat window, and this is basically the same chat that we saw earlier for the post window. And we can do the same, or at least most of the same things, but whatever happens in here will actually get transferred into that channel's chat window. The next option over is the raise your hand. Don't really see much, but if I jump to participants, I can see who has their hand raised, and I can address them. If I had other people in here, I'd actually see a notification on the participants for that hand being raised. All right, so now we get to 3 dots again. So that means we've got a lot of cool stuff going on in here. So when I click on the 3 dots, we have several options here, and we actually have an option that's not showing that you'll see when you do yours with a real group of people. But the first option is show device settings. So this basically lets me change, if I have a separate webcam or something going on, I can change to a different microphone. So I have like a regular mic and I have my built-in mic. It lets you change to a different camera if you have a second camera attached. Just lets you do different hardware settings. Your next thing is enter full screen. This would be similar to doing this, just makes it take up the whole window. Show background effects. That's where the fun happens. That's the magic. And we're going to give you a link to probably 80 to 100 backgrounds, and there's a lot of silly things in there, all the way from The Simpsons to Seinfeld to Friends to Star Trek. We're going to give you tons of fun background effects. So when you open that up, these don't work on the phone. They don't work on a Chromebook. And if you have a slow processor, it may not even work on there. So some of the computers can do this, some of them can't. You have the option here to have no background. And let me turn my video back on. So excuse the ugly for a little bit. The second option is for you to blur your background. And notice it doesn't do it right away. I can preview it down here in my window, which turns my video off so they don't see me playing around with screens. And I can either blur my background, which it's a messy background and it needs it, or I can try these backgrounds. And when I'm ready to go, I can click apply and it turns my video back on with my background. You can also, as I said, I'm going to give you a bunch of them. You can click add new and it will let you upload your own backgrounds. They have to be, it's kind of like a Goldilocks thing. They can't be too big, they can't be too small. You want to get just the right size. And all the ones I'm going to give you are already pre-sized to at least work. There are some videos in my folder. Those are meant for Zoom, but you can do still images. One word of caution is when you do a background and you're previewing it, it's going to look like the background is backwards. It's purposely doing the mirror effect so that when you point left, it's going left. But it flips the image around for your other viewers in the video. So don't freak out about your background looking backwards. It only looks backwards to you. It will flip for everyone else. So that's a very important thing. It is good to do backgrounds when you can because it can cover up the clutter. But you do need to have a better lighting situation that I was showing you. I love that you get to see the bad version and why it's important to have a good one. But if you can get a really plain background, it really helps the AI with giving you a good, clean effect of the backdrop. And it can be a lot of fun. I've tried to use a different silly backdrop in all of my meetings, and I think it makes it interesting if you got something different all the time. So you can go download wallpapers or whatever you want. Just make sure it's a good, decent-sized image. All right. We can hide those effects. The next thing down is to turn on live captions, and this is kind of like closed captioning, where you see at the bottom of the TV show. These are hilariously bad. They got about an 80% hit rate, but some of the things it comes up with, especially when you have an East Tennessee accent like I do, it is hilariously bad. It's like a bad episode of Mad Libs. But it's a best case effort. If you've got a kid that has hearing issues, they'll get the gist of it. Like I say, it's about 80, maybe 90% accurate on a good day if you've got a better accent than I do. But it can kind of top out what you're saying at the bottom. The keypad is kind of useless. We don't have the phone dialing. We can only call other users, so don't really need a keypad. The end meeting is kind of neat. Unlike you personally hanging up, this ends the meeting for everybody. So that way you don't have to worry about everybody talking about you behind your back after you leave the meeting. They'll do that on a separate meeting. And then finally, you can turn off the incoming video. So if you are having a bad network day, you can turn off all the video, which basically makes it a audio call for you so that you don't get quite as much stuttering, or if you're just having a video that's struggling. Now, as I said before, I want to reiterate, I'm not seeing it right here, but you're going to typically see a record button in this menu. You have to always press it to record. There's no auto record for me like Zoom had. You have to go in and tell it to record. And I strongly encourage you to record every direct instruction or large video chat that you have, and that way if a student doesn't make it, they can always refer back to it and they can watch that over and over. So please do your best to remember to record all of your meetings. Next, we have the share button, and this basically lets me share my desktop, or I could share a PowerPoint, and it just puts it up full screen for me. Now if you're doing this, one thing I recommend, and we'll look at this in the advanced session, is if you're going to do something like this, I would have one device up for your desktop sharing, and then I would set up another device, even if it's just your phone, for your chat, so you can see the chat window and maybe the hands being raised or whatnot, so you can kind of move between the two so you don't have to flip back and forth, because this is going to cover up your screen with your window. They do have a whiteboard that you can install, and I'm going to strongly discourage you on this one. First of all, when I go to the whiteboard, if you were in this chat with me right now, you would see that everybody can draw on it. So you can just imagine what wonderful shapes everybody's going to get when you allow any students to draw on the whiteboard. If you have a group that you trust, if you dare, try that. But, there's better ways to do that. If you wanted to do a whiteboard app, I'm going to click over here and stop presenting. I would recommend that you just share your desktop and use your smart notebook or your Promethean, or even better, if you have multiple devices up, is present from your iPad and use the computer as your chat window, and just use your favorite iPad app. And Matthew Davison will show you a bunch of great ones. He's got tons of options, everything from EduCreations to Explain Everything. And there's even a Smart Notebook iPad app that actually opens Smart Notebook files. And that way you're right on the microphone, you've got the pen, just a much better option. But we'll save that for the advanced. Your last two buttons are the mute, so I can turn off my sound if I want to mute, if I'm having a big coughing fit. And then obviously you've already seen me turn the camera on and off, and you have your timer. So that's pretty much your meet. Whether you schedule the meet or do an instant meet, you have the same toolbar. You have the same options there available to you. Okay, so let's jump out of this. Now let's go back to our team. So within your teams, you can see your teams here. You can create a team. And I want to demonstrate this because one of your first challenges is going to be to create a team for yourself. When you create the team, you've got 4 different options. Honestly, it doesn't matter which one you pick. They're going to create class teams for you. The one I created for the staff was a staff one. You can create ones for clubs. There's very few differences. It really has mostly to do with the OneNote notebooks, which is a much more advanced feature. And to be honest with you, anything that you would do in a OneNote notebook is probably going to be more cleanly done in Canvas anyway. But I encourage you to look at the OneNote. It's another one of those rabbit holes. So if you're not comfortable with Teams, just stay out of OneNote notebooks for now. Let's just leave that alone. And let's try to make sure we stay dedicated and focused in the work for students needs to be in Canvas. Anything that's live and interactive, try to do that in Teams. So for the most part, your classes are going to be created for you. So you might maybe create a PLC one. We're trying to create PLCs as channels in a bigger group. So you might create a club team. You might create different kinds of groups. But honestly, it really doesn't matter which type you create. So when you make your team, I'll go back and show you one of the ones I made when I was practicing here. You always start out with a general. And then, of course, as we saw in the 3 dots, you can go in here and, manage your channel, or you can add more channels. So some of your early challenges will be make a team, create some channels, learn how to record, and we'll show you that list here in just a little bit of some of the challenges we want you to accomplish for the day. All right, moving on over, looking at some of the other options. We've hit the majority of it now. I just want to kind of hit the highlights over here. Activity will show you stuff from every single channel or even just an individual chat. We'll show you that here in just a minute. But especially if someone gives you a mention, or if someone adds you or changes your role, it's kind of like the Facebook notifications or Twitter notifications. It just shows you the things that happened in a team or a channel that directly relate to you. So that's kind of your Facebook feed there. Chat, this may seem confusing. We saw chat over in the channels, but this is a chat for if you have an impromptu call with somebody and you're not in a team together or it's not related to a team, this is where it stores that conversation for you. So this could get a little busy if you had a bunch of just impromptu calls that didn't originate inside of a team. So something to keep in mind there. But they had the same idea, your chat, your files, and here's a recording. So this was actually where we had the faculty meeting recorded the other day. So this was the recording that we dumped in there. So you can just see that chat of all the questions that happened during our faculty meeting, the files that were shared. So this was not part of a team. We just set up a call, and so it's kind of loose and hanging out there in the ether. So we did teams. Let's skip on down. Assignments is something we want to avoid. It's related to the class notebooks. We want to keep all of our assignments in Canvas. Keep it clean. We don't want people fishing around guessing where assignments are. The calendar will show you where your scheduled meetings are. And so here, this is how you can do a meeting that's not necessarily part of a team or a channel. You can just click Meet Now, and you got a meeting, and you can send invites to people, and it's not on the calendar necessarily. It's just kind of a out there meeting. There's other places to do that too. Or you can schedule one, and then we'll talk about live events later. But you can schedule a meeting. You can just start a meeting now that's not part of a group. You can just impromptu message people. Down here in calls is another way. If somebody were on the opposite campus from me, I could just type in their name, and I could do a quick call with them. And I can do an audio call or a video call. And they have to have Teams open or some kind of notifications to see it, but that's a neat way for me to have a call. The other advantage to this is if we are on a video call, I can share a screen. We can share screens, and we could do some troubleshooting. You could show me some error message you're having, and then we can actually share control of screens and do some tech support remotely there. So it's kind of a neat little feature to that. And you can set up your speed dial and your contacts, and you even have a voicemail. But this is more so for, in-county kind of calls. And you can access everybody. So I could make up a video call with someone at a completely different school. So I could call Lisa Taylor over at West High School and do a call with her in a different building of the many Lisa Taylors there. The next one down is files. So this just shows me all of my files and all of my teams, and what team, what channel. So if you're having trouble finding a file and you can't remember what team or what channel it is, you can just go up here and sort them, and there's all the files that had anything to do with anything in Microsoft Teams. And then last of all, we have 3 dots, but this is not necessarily a good one. This is another one of those rabbit holes. There's Stream for your videos. You can add some of these, but we want to save this for some of the more advanced stuff. We want you right now to be focused on the chat, the files, and the meets, or in other words, the videos. So we want that to be your focus. So some of the challenges we want you to accomplish now that you finish this video, we want you to pick a tier that you can handle, or just work your way through them. So tier 1 and tier 2, if you need help after this video, I'll be in the library, and I'm going to be just helping you get through these. We want to see how far in the challenge list that you can make it down through. Mr. Davis will be in the library as well in one of the small rooms, and he will be working with the people who are just geniuses at Teams and want to work on some of the more challenging things, like how to present with an iPad and a computer, or how to set up an office hours impromptu meet, or breakout rooms, or just all sorts of different things here. But today, what we'd love for you to jump on, whether you do it in the library with us or whether you just get in a group of 3 to 5 people and practice doing these elements so that you can see what it's like when you're in a conversation with people before you get to working with kids that you can't see. So get in a group and, see if you can get to teams from the website, from the phone, from the computer. See if you can start a meeting. See if you can join a meeting. See if you can schedule a meeting. Try to record one. Download your attendance and meet participants. If you get comfortable with that, if you're scheduling a meeting and you haven't made a team yet, remember you can go to Calls or you can go to Calendar just to make an impromptu meeting. Once you get through there, go in and try to create a team and get a link to the team. And in this YouTube video, I'll actually have timestamps so you can kind of jump back to the video of where some of these topics were. But as I said, we'll be in the library to kind of walk you through. Our goal for you today is to make sure you can at least do these things. And if you get through all that and you're still ready to move on, we want to try to get you through these two tiers today. We like for everybody to be comfortable enough that you could show somebody else how to do these things. And then if you're really a wizard at this, Mr. Davison will take you through some of these more advanced things today, and then we'll have some trainings later on to help you get through that as well. Hope you've enjoyed this training today. Please let us know as you're transitioning into your smaller groups to practice these things, or if you want to come to the library and have the hands-on help from me or Mr. Davison. Have a good afternoon.